Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
That was Ajaladi Traveler by Ola Dips. And of course, we're traveling today. It's of course cruise control. We just go around town and of course seeing what's happening in the tech block, tech industry, and seeing what Africa is really doing about the penetration of tech. We're looking at innovations and all of that great stuff. And today I've got two interesting and amazing ladies joining me on the show to talk about tech trends shaping and transforming the tourism sector and of course adventure in Africa. It's been a while since I've said the word adventure, but first let's kickstart by talking about the impact of technology which cuts across different sectors in Africa, enabling tech solutions and of course transformation. Although it is believed that the sector of tourism in Africa is being overlooked and lagging behind other industries, like we look at the finance, healthcare, education, even agriculture is also popping when we talk about technology. But these days, you rarely hear anything happening in the tourism sector. And don't forget, Africa is like the second largest and most populous continent in the world and boasts as home to beautiful safaris, spectacular wildlife, and of course, diverse landscape. This is a sector that helps the economy as the backbone for economics, socio-economic, financial, and environmental development in any country. So what's really happening when we talk about tourism in Africa? Let's take stock of all the changing trends that is happening across this sector. With my guests today, I've got Yvonne and Clara with me, but I would like them to officially introduce themselves. I can see Clara's really ready for us today. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Bookii. Lovely to be with you on the program. And I think it's really going to be an interesting afternoon sharing knowledge with your listeners.
Thank you so much for your time. So you've already started the conversation. I mean, introduce yourself, what you do, how you do what you do, and let the listeners get to know you.
Okay, so my name is Clara Okoro, and I'm the founder and the chief operating officer at My Beautiful Africa. We're a travel technology company whose focus is to digitally transform the travel and hospitality sector businesses in Africa. And we hope to do this by introducing technology tools that businesses can adopt to make their operations more seamless and to become more competitive.
I like that. And Yvonne?
Yes, thank you so much, Bookii. I'm super excited to be here today, and I know it's going to be an amazing time. This is one of my strongest passions, and the industry is one I have worked with over the years. I've known all my life, and I love the hospitality and tourism industry, and I'm excited to be here. My name is Yvonne Joseph. I am the founder and current CEO of 22 Hospitality. It's a digital marketing company that is on a mission to transforming hospitality businesses with online tools, digital solutions, so that they can be more visible and they can get more impact online, transforming their online customers into loyal guests and seeing how their businesses can work in the digital landscape. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for that introduction. I really like my guest today because we're all about Africa, we're all about traveling, adventure, and of course you need a place to stay. You can't just come to Africa and sleep on the streets. We don't want that for you guys. We're bringing you all the details, how you can get a seamless travel experience and of course enjoy the beautiful Africa. I'm saying beautiful Africa because that's what Miss Clara represents. So I would like to ask you first before the main conversation. What's so beautiful about Africa that wherever you get to is the first thing you share with people about where you're coming from?
Okay, so I guess I'll just give a backdrop of how I arrived at that name, My Beautiful Africa. I was on a trip to Gambia in 2014, and rather than use a lot of their cards that are available, I decided to do walks, to the conference center and everything. And I realized that the landscape was extremely beautiful. Had never been to Gambia. And I figured, look, that the world just thinks in a space where we talk about war and, poverty all the time. But hey, this is the beauty all around me. But why is nobody talking about it? And it just hit me that we're not talking about the beautiful side of Africa. We're not talking about the landscapes, the waterfalls, the fauna, the flowers, everything that is beautiful about this continent.
Yeah.
And I took it upon myself. I think it's about time we begin to showcase to the world the beautiful side of Africa that a lot of people are overlooking. And the funny thing is, it's normally the wealthy ones in the Western world that come on safaris to Africa. They tend to keep away those beautiful sides of the continent from the middle class and the bourgeois of their countries. So they make it like a class thing, that it's normally the elites and the wealthy ones that can come in and have safari adventures. And it became, okay, just project the poverty and the war and leave out that beautiful side of Africa. And that was what we wanted to change the narratives about.
I like that. Yvonne, what's one beautiful thing you get to share with people around the world about Africa from your own view and how you see your Africa?
Thank you, Bookii. Africa is so blessed. And when I say blessed, I'm not even mixing words. Africa is blessed with a wealth of natural resources. And beyond natural resources, the cultural tourist attractions are so enormous. You can't even exhaust them. Should we talk about the sandy beaches in East Africa? Should we talk about the wildlife reserves in Southern Africa? When travelers come to Africa or when people visit Africa, I always tell them there is always something for every type of traveler. There is always something for everyone. So when people say, oh, just like Clara just mentioned that the elite, in quote, they visit Africa and they enjoy all the experiences, and then they hide these things from others when they go back to their home countries, which is not supposed to be so, because everything that Africa has been blessed with can be accessed by any kind of traveler, whether you are a mid-income traveler, whether you are an elite, a luxury traveler, whether you are a business traveler. There is something for everyone in Africa. So when I go out there, I always tell people that if you come to Africa, regardless of any of the African countries you visit, there is something for you as a traveler.
Okay. I know we like people to find out more things about Africa just to bring them closer and to come share this beauty with us. But before we tell them to come share this beautiful scenery, landscapes, waterfalls, let's talk about the state of tourist attraction in Africa. And I'm going to start here from Nigeria. When you look at tourist attraction, you barely hear a lot, or people will say, I'm going to the beach, or I'm going to Badagry, or the old zone, the slave trade zone. Yes, but when I think of it, very rare before you'd hear people say, oh, I'm going to Abuja to look at the rocks. Recently, there was a story about Idori getting road access and all of these things. So what's the state of tourist attraction in Africa when we look at how it influences tourists to come into the continent?
All right, so basically, I would say we naturally don't like to gravitate, to the reality of the state of things in Nigeria. We need sometimes to put our heads in the sand to cover it up like it's not there. But the sad truth is that currently Nigeria's passport is the lowest in the sub-Saharan region in Africa. And that just gives you a glimpse of why that is so. The state of most tourist attraction centers in Nigeria truly are nothing to write home about. And there is a reason for this, because most state governments have not actually placed tourism at the top end of the pyramid where it's supposed to be. So when you have very beautiful natural resources that are already put there by God Almighty, it's you, the human species, who needs to harness it. But you have situations where you want to get to somewhere like Gurara Waterfalls in Niger State, or the Awum Waterfalls in Enugu State, or you want to go to the Bookii cave in Anambra State, and you can't even find a proper road or the trail that will lead you to these places. So there is a dearth of infrastructure that will make it easy for you as a global traveler to arrive in Nigeria, to get to your destination of the attraction you want to visit, and to get into a train or a bus and to get easily to that location, housing that tourist attraction. So truly, and to be honest, if something is not done about it, we're just going to be going round in circles. The state of most of these places aren't really anything to write home about. And it's because there are no intentional strategic plans to make them so.
Okay. Yvonne, would you have anything in regards to the state of tourist attraction in Nigeria and Africa?
Yes, Bookii, thank you for that. I'm just going to finish up from what Clara has just said, and it can't be far from the truth. You see, Nigeria in particular has diverse range of attractions, but as Clara said, I think it all starts from the state level. Recently, someone was sharing with me how he did a research and found out that Delta State has over 14 attraction sites. And I was like, 14? One state? Are you sure? And he started to tell me these places. And I was shocked because, I mean, who would have thought this is a state that it's in the south and majorly depended so much on oil. And everyone thinks that, oil is the only natural resources that we have been blessed with in this country that we can actually sell to the world. And now that has not worked for us as a country, it's time for us to start harnessing other areas. And that cannot even be overemphasized. So I think that the government of each state should now start having a deliberate and intentional focus towards tourism in their state. And I am very sure that by the time each state governor starts to present their findings, their research, and what they want to do as regards creating access road, like Clara said, and making sure that these tourist sites are actually visible. People know about it. They make it attractive, because it's not just about telling people about it. It's about also making it attractive, because you know that most of these places are ancient. Most of these places are old. So we have, for example, some museums that are dilapidated. You can actually renovate this museum and make it very attractive for the modern day traveler. So make it so attractive that there will be something for people to anticipate, and there will be something for people to come and see. So making it attractive, creating the access road and the availability for people to actually come and visit these places is so important. So these are the challenges that we are seeing currently in Nigeria: poor infrastructure, a lack of security, because if people think about how they might be kidnapped on their way to visiting any of these remote places where these tourist sites are situated, they will be discouraged to go. So the lack of the insecurity, political instability, inadequate funding, these are just some of the challenges that can actually discourage tourists from coming into the country. Not just local tourists, but also international tourists. So that we can strengthen our economic system, we can also increase awareness about what we bring as a country. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for highlighting that, because the government also have a lot to do. I mean, you talked about the road security, which is also very important. But one thing that they've taken and made a move towards is gathering of data. Now we're talking about biometrics. I remember Clara just mentioned about the issue of getting visa to some of these African countries, and of course passport situation. So when we look at this, how does this affect the state of tourism? Like, I remember I wanted to go to South Africa last year and I had to do the e-visa, and they were telling me that my e-visa is going to take about 4 to 6 weeks. and the travel option was just open there was a period of time which was not up to 4 to 3 weeks. So how do we tackle some of this challenge in terms of data, passports, visa, to enable local and international tourists in and out of Africa?
Okay, yes. So basically, let's start from the aspect of infrastructure. Globally, we have over 40 countries that have keyed into utilizing e-visa for their arrivals and, visitors for tourism, so to say. Then the infrastructure to build that is quite expensive if you want to make it as a standalone in a country. So what some countries do, like you have the United States, you have the European Union, and you have Great Britain, they build their backbone structures, as a collective of countries, and then tap into that to now dovetail into their countries and use that same backbone to do the necessary configurations that would be independent to their country. So it's quite expensive to set up the infrastructure to do some of these things. And that's what greatly affected Africa. We just have a few countries in Africa that offer the e-visa solutions. If I can remember off the cuff, Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa. And South Africa that you were mentioning, I think theirs came on board after the COVID-19. And what happened was that the volume of travelers would affect the operations of your e-visa portal. Because if there is a surge in so many applications going on, the bandwidth might not be able to accommodate the quantum of applications that they will be processing. So what happens is you have quite a lot of backlog for Home Office to process. And that takes the time that ordinarily it's supposed to be something that should take time because it's technology, it's digital. It should be able to do it. And then the next day you have, a revert to your application. But like I said, adoption of technology is the first step, and then processing it is the second stage. So we don't know the quantum of investment that has been made into their infrastructure to build that to make it a lot easier and seamless. But as you have mentioned, as a client, you tried it and you were told that it was going to take you about 2 to 4 weeks to process, which shouldn't really be so, because that also is what the manual sticker visa would have taken you about the same time to get out if you were traveling. And these are some of the issues. The quantum of investment to set those up, the structures up, and then also the timeline in terms of the volume of people making that application, and if the bandwidth will be able to accommodate that in terms of the processing time it will take.
I mean, I like the fact that you mentioned it shouldn't take that long, because I had to opt for another country and that took me just 3 days. I'm like, so what are we really missing out here in Africa? If I could get another country in 3 days, why not any country in Africa within such a short period of time? So now
those are the explanations I just gave you.
I'm just saying, that was my mindset. So I was looking forward to having this conversation, because this is mostly what people are really talking about, but they've not gotten that answer directly from people who are operating in that sector. I'm glad. I'm really appreciative of your time on the show and sharing this knowledge with us. So now let's look at the infiltration of technology. I mean, tech has come and is almost everywhere, in fintech, in health tech, agro-tech, and now we're looking at tourism. Tourism is always more at the back. What's really going on? When we talk about the emergence of this technology, is it that tourism is not catching up so fast? Okay, I'll start with Yvonne from hospitality. I mean, we can't talk about tourism without hospitality, and I'm looking at database right now. There are new tools, there are new trends that people are using to push hospitality for tourist attraction. So what is this emerging technology? What have they done? What are the solutions that they've been able to profile in terms of hospitality?
Okay, thank you, Bookii, and thank you for directing your question at last.
I'll make sure to do that now.
Yeah, so I think that technology in Africa, or should we even bring it home to Nigeria, is growing slowly. And when I say it's growing slowly, I mean the adoption of technology in Nigeria is growing slowly, especially in the tourism sector, in the tourism industry. I think that one of the reasons is because people have not started to see ways at which these technology tools can actually aid the sector, can actually generate more revenue for the sector. And I really like what Clara does with her conference, with her summit. And I think more people should begin to do that. Information is key, Bookii. You know, when people don't have a knowledge about something, they don't really know anything about it. It's difficult to expect them to actually do those things or use those things. We need to spread more information about the use of technology in the tourism sector, because it's going to be a very big driver and a very big booster for the tourism sector. And I'll give an example. I visited a hotel a few months ago, I think early this year, and I was supposed to take pictures of the hotel facility. And I brought a partner with me who had a VR tool, and he was going to use this VR tool to capture the spaces of the hotel in a way that it was going to look almost like real. If anybody was to look at those pictures, the person would actually think that he or she was at that hotel facility in real time. And when we were working, the client came to us and was like, "What is this?" And I'm like, I had to start explaining what it is, what it does, and the benefits. And it just crossed my mind that really people are not really informed about what technology can do for their businesses as it relates to the hospitality and tourism industry. So the first place I think that we have to start from is information. From the federal level, from the state level, from the local government to the businesses, they need to harness the right information to know what this technology actually does for them before they can actually use it. Because you cannot use something that you don't even understand what it does. You cannot effectively even use it, even when it's handed to you. If you don't know how it operates, how would you know how to use it? So the aspect of technology when it comes to tourism is something that cannot even be overlooked. Technology is everywhere. When you sleep, when you wake up, it is chasing us all around. And we are seeing the emergence of AI, of artificial intelligence. And people are talking about it. The whole world is talking about it. But Nigeria, the tourism sector in Nigeria and even in Africa is so quiet. Why? Because they've not even used the basic tech tools yet to harness the industry sector. How would they even start with artificial intelligence? But I'm not giving up, because I know that it is possible and it will definitely happen. Come to think of it, if a tourist owner decides to start using some tech tools, for example, augmented reality, that's the AR, to bring historical sites or cultural experiences to life, you can imagine how that is going to boost the tourism sector in Nigeria. You can imagine how that is going to actively allow visitors to engage with the rich heritage that we have, because these are immersive and interactive tech tools, right? Mm-hmm. So for the tourism industry, I think we should start exploring immersive technology tools that can help us bring these various experiences, the cultural experiences, the site attractions, the various beautiful destinations, bring them to life so that people can then see in real time what these things look like before they even visit the various sites, before they even come to our country. They can see it. And that's why I, in particular, as a company owner, I push for digital visibility because even if you have all these tools in place, you still need to be digitally active. You still need to be digitally visible to spread the message across to various places where you cannot reach physically. So technology in the tourism sector has to be greatly harnessed because we are missing out on a lot of potential. I'll just let Clara take over from there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Yvonne. Clara, do you have anything to add to how, like she mentioned, Yvonne said there is no enough information out there on how people can tap into these emerging technologies and all of that stuff. So how do we tap into this, and how does this help promote competitiveness in the world as a global region? How do we tap into what the world is all about?
Okay, so I just give you a case scenario. So for my business, I have an archetype of who my client is. So I have maybe Allison is a Black American and she has fond passion about visiting motherland, which is Africa. Mm-hmm. But she's a high profile financial analyst who works on Wall Street, and time is an extreme currency for her. Time is huge currency for her. So Allison is highly dependent on technology to schedule her day, to schedule her trips, to schedule her activities and everything she does. And so she goes online and begins to, look for materials to plan her next vacation. She's always wanted to go to her motherland, in Africa. And she, comes across quite a lot of things about Ghana, Nigeria. And it's now dependent on the available information on those digital spaces to let her make an informed decision about where she's going to. So first she's going to start to research hotels. She's going to research transportation mobility. She's going to research availability of good restaurants around where she's going to. She's going to research the resort, the natural tourist attractions in those places. If these places are not on the internet, you've lost a client. And that's where the advanced economies like Europe, like the United States of America, has gone miles and miles ahead of Africa, because barely at the touch of a button, you have everything you need for a concierge to plan your itinerary for your vacation right at the tip of your fingers. So she truly wants to come to her motherland. She truly wants to connect with Africa, but there is no information on the websites she's gone to. There's no information about these places that would make her tell her concierge company, hey, this is where I want to go. These are the places I would like to visit when I get to Ghana. Can you help me with hotels around here for them to plan a well-fit vacation for this archetype of a client? So that's the major challenge that is facing Africa in this digital transformation aspect. And how can we be able to leapfrog? It's not so difficult any longer. The backbones are there already. The big tech companies, Google Travel, Facebook, Meta, they're building infrastructure to help you leapfrog. So all you have to do is feed content on the internet. So when anybody types through SEO, your business information will come up there, your country's name will come up there, your natural resources and tourist areas will come up there, and help them make a decision to come into your country in Africa for their vacation. And what does that do? It brings in capital into your economy. Ghana, as we talk today, has turned over $9 trillion in 2 years through tourism. And as last week, I learned that the Vice President of the United States, for their first official state visit, is heading to Ghana. This tells you that if you're not intentional about growing your infrastructure for tourism, you're going to be missing a lot in terms of capital inflow into your economy. When you talked about e-wallet, what does that do? This is the ability to be able to transcend, your financial transactions across borders. So I don't have to be afraid that I'm going to run out of cash if I travel with dollars into Nigeria. With my digital cash app, Google Pay, Apple Pay or with my Samsung Pay wallet, I can be able to do transactions anywhere I step into in Nigeria, and I will not be afraid that I will be cash strapped. So these are the issues we really need to be intentional to look into and think about. The minuses are huge if we continue to overlook what technology is already doing for so many countries in terms of bringing in huge resources, huge incomes into their economy.
Yes, that was a very good one from you. Thank you. You talked about the e-wallet. E-wallet is actually a great adoption. I would actually recommend that we look into that so that people, now the world is moving cashless, and I like the fact that we're into the era right now in Nigeria, and some other countries are catching up with this digital currency. Another thing I came across was the eSIM. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. Yvonne, Clara?
Yeah.
So, but then I researched into it, and I found out that people are struggling with the activation of this eSIM, because most tourists will be like, when I come to your country, I can't get access to talk to my people from wherever they are. So what's the situation like when we talk about connectivity, before I move to the next question? Clara, you can respond to that.
Okay, so what the big mobile telecoms companies in Nigeria, I think, are still not very intentional about developing that product, because I think probably they're looking at it as an elitist product, and it's meant majorly for people who travel a lot, which is a smaller percentage of the major, normal SIM market in Nigeria as we know it. But eSIM is going to be a huge leapfrog for a lot of people, whether you're that small percentage of their target market for that, who they figure will use it, or just people who do domestic travel across their countries. Because the point is, eSIM is going to be a big leapfrog over and above for security. You can see what's going on with a lot of challenges we have in Nigeria currently. When you lose your phone, the first fear is if anyone has access to your SIM card, they're going to be able to empty your bank account with that. And so you have a lot of challenges tied to the physical SIM card that we currently use. But eSIM is going to make that a lot difficult for anybody to access, because most of your data are stored with the mobile provider, and you can only get access to it through data that truly belongs to you, probably by your fingerprint or by any other sort of biometric that clearly states that you're the owner of that SIM and nobody else can have access to it, in order to be able to open it up to do any sort of fraud or anything that would harm your private, data or details. So essentially, it's going to be something that, I would advise the big mobile telecom companies that have already come up with it. That's the MTN and the Airtel are the two that I've heard about. It's going to make it a lot seamless. When we travel, I don't need to start activating a SIM at the airport to call my family that I'm already safely landed at the country which I travel to. eSIM will make it a lot easy for me to call anywhere in the world and still be able to safeguard my original number. That's my SIM number that originally belongs to me. And I think the plus is a lot much more than the minus in terms of technology.
All right. So, Yvonne, I'll be pushing this question to you, because I know when we look at the hospitality department, I remember back in the days, you have to go through a book of directories to find contact. Then you have to call. Even before that, you have to actually get to the hotel or get to wherever you're booking. And now we have Airbnb springing up. We have people leasing their apartment to travelers, to tourists to be able to use. So what's this emerging technology that is currently help shaping this transformation when we talk about hospitality for tourist people to be able to get a place and find safety while on tour?
Yeah, thank you, Bookii. I think beyond the use of OTAs, that's other online travel agencies, there should be that intentionality for hotel owners or accommodation owners to actually leverage on their own home front. Clara talked a bit about them being visible. It's very important. I mean, before I visit any OTA site, the first thing that comes to my mind is your hotel's name first. For example, I want to visit Hotel ABC. I won't be thinking about an OTA first. I will be thinking about Hotel ABC. And the first thing I go online to check is Hotel ABC. So what OTA actually does is to just increase your visibility. That's what it does. But the first place is your home front. So if you do not keep it's more like a charity begins at home, right? So if you don't keep your house in order first, then you go spread yourself across multiple platforms. You might just be doing yourself a disservice, because the first place to start is from your house first. So in your house in order for me is being visible. That intentionality to actually want to improve your visibility as a business owner. When I go online to search for Hotel ABC, your hotel pops up with every information that I need about your hotel. And that gives me great joy. I can actually book directly from your whether it's your hotel website, or your landing page, I can book directly. I can make other inquiries that I need from that from your hotel. I can even check out other areas, surrounding areas that I can visit from just making my reservation. So online travel sites is not new. Yeah, it's been in existence for years now, but that's intentionality for businesses in Nigeria or in Africa to keep going, regardless of, am I getting enough customers, or am I getting enough guests or not? That intentionality for them to keep putting themselves out there, knowing that they are building their digital footprint, is something that must not even be taken for granted, because at the end of the day, you're trying to make your business grow. You're trying to grow your business online. You're trying to increase visibility for your business. You're trying to increase reach for your business. So I have even seen some hotels even have their own booking sites, which is very good and very encouraging. So you go to their website and you see they have their own booking sites where you can book, especially hotel chains, where you can book or check other hotel properties that they own. So online visibility is something that must be done and must be done continuously. So you can't say, you put 1 naira into your digital marketing effort this month, and then the following month you are saying, you know what, I think I want to take a break. I'm going to skip this month, and it needs to be a drive. You need to continue. So keep pushing out there. So many of the hotels in Nigeria do not place emphasis on their digital marketing budget. So they just open their various accommodation businesses and they think that guests must automatically walk in. We are living in a digital era where people buy first from what they see before they even buy from you. They first buy in their minds before they buy from you physically. So if they are not seeing you, if your digital presence is shaky, if you're even online but you don't even have the right information for them to access, it's a problem.
Thank you for what you just shared. I'm moving this next question to Clara to ask about, when we talk about technology, we see urbanization happening everywhere. Things are changing. I mean, we're losing some of our local landscape and there's environmental degradation also. So does this threaten the growth and sustainability of tourism in Africa?
Okay, so it's actually a growing culture for a lot of corporate organizations. So it's a growing currency, which is very critical to protecting the natural ecosystem that draws people in. So you have the savannas, you have the deserts, you have the oceans, your caves, they need to protect. So looking at the technologies that are now driving and we're looking at carbon footprints. So how is this translating to what we can do to make sure that the ecosystems, the houses most of this natural, and even the airport was submerged in water. Aviation and damage that is done to the what you call now that's the ozone layer, yes. And because if the ozone layer is highly exposed, it's going to cause damage to the floras and the faunas in the world, and it's also going to change the model of the weather the way we know it. So all this imbalance would gradually start to cause these erosions that we're seeing, and the damage is caused by extra torrential rains that tend to submerge countries and things like that. So what companies now do is, if you're one of the companies that sign up to the climate change agreement, you begin to be very careful and wary of the quantity of your carbon footprints. And as you measure it, it could be translated to tax deductions for you. If your carbon footprints are very low, the government would tend to cut down on a lot in terms of the taxes they would take from you. And you can do this through the use of technology by changing the type of fossil fuel you're using now into hydrogen fuel for airlines, like I mentioned, and then also by the use of electric cars, like we're seeing with companies like Tesla, who have stations where you can actually go to recharge your batteries rather than using the fossil fuel we're using currently, like diesel and petrol. So over time, all this is going to cut down the emission that is causing the damage in terms of climate change. And it's the technology that is being used to develop all these alternative means of energy that would greatly make sure that our environments are protected. And Africa is already also tending towards this line of signing up with companies that tend to give carbon footprint exchange with taxes and all that. And this is also what we're beginning to see as the trend that is moving on.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to move straight into collaboration and partnership. I'm almost running out of time here. Let's talk about how collaboration and partnership can help us in how we tell the African story to entice tourists. Yvonne, you can respond first to this question.
Okay, thank you, Bookii. Well, I also believe that technology, let's start with technology first before we talk about the partnerships. Technology can be greatly used to really tell African stories and also be used to preserve even the authenticity of the cultural experiences that we have in Africa, because we have a lot. And as we've said from the beginning of our discussion, it's something that must be harnessed greatly if we want to really see economic growth in our continent and in our country, Nigeria, bringing it home. Now, in terms of partnerships, well, there are a lot of partnership opportunities that we can begin to harness, even from the government level, from the private sector level, public sector level, individuals, business owners. There are loads of partnership opportunities that we can begin to harness and loads of collaboration that we can harness. We just need to look inwards to see which country is doing well and how they are doing it. We don't even have to go far. We can learn from our fellow African brothers, our fellow African countries and neighboring countries. Clara mentioned Ghana. I lived in Ghana for 4 years, and I know that when it comes to tourism, Ghana is not joking around. And funny enough, they don't even have as much as we have here in Nigeria. I remember visiting one of the caves in Ghana, and it was so exciting to see that the zeal and the vibe that the tour guide was putting into the work. You would think that he was being paid millions to do what he does. And when I digged in deeper, I saw that it was actually a government-owned tourist company who was in charge of waiting for people who were interested in taking tours around the city and showing them different destinations. So let's start from the various tourism bodies and tourism individuals that we have as tour guides, travel agencies, how they can collaborate with the government first. These people have the ideas, but they need the support, right? Okay. Then they need funding. For example, if transportation was given to some of this tour guide, I think it will make the work easier and more beautiful. If the access roads are already provided by the government, there is no need to just leave it at that. The government can even go ahead to say, you know what, who are the endorsed tourism bodies in Nigeria? Okay, what do you need to make the process or to make your work easier? And maybe it could be, the fact that they don't even have any means of transportation, because I know some of them don't. Okay, we would provide government-owned buses for you to take or move people from point A to point B. So that could be an example of a great partnership when it comes to government and stakeholder partnership. So this can be very encouraging, because it will even give them the zeal to even want to do more. They have the skill, they have the passion, they need the funding, right? They need the resources, right? So this is just one of the resources that can be easily implemented when it comes to government and stakeholder relationship, and many others. So we need to look within us and then look at what our neighbors are doing and see how we can collaborate or partner with them and to make it more beautiful.
Thank you.
In terms of the...
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Clara, would you give us a quick one?
Okay, basically, a quick one, like you said. I think that's basically the way the world is running now. Collaborations and partnerships, when people bring their strengths together, and combine it, as long as everyone remains honest and truthful to themselves in terms of the contracts that are signed and respects it. You bring your own strengths and I bring mine. If you have expertise in a certain area and I have expertise in a certain area, and we can build a company, our separate companies coming together to work on projects, and we have a contract that will state our terms of engagement. Once the contract, explains everything, we're good to go. So, it works very perfectly in technology. You have the likes of Microsoft working with Intel. They supply components to make parts of the computers that they build. And, everything works perfectly well because each is bringing their own strengths to the table. So I think tourism and travel companies need to understand that that's the easiest way to cut down on expenses, to bring strengths together, to make money together, and to be able to forge ahead in leaps and bounds if we want to truly grow. Because like the saying that says, you can go far if you walk alone, but you can go extremely far if you work together.
All right. Thank you very much for that last quote. I think that would do a whole lot to all of these things we've been saying. I appreciate your time on the show. Thank you, Yvonne, for all the knowledge you shared with us on the show also. We hope to do this some other time with you, if you'd permit. But quickly, can you share your social media handle so people can actually check you online and follow? And of course, if they have questions, continue.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I'm online as the Hospitality Queen. So put that on Facebook, put that on Instagram at the Hospitality Queen, and on LinkedIn as Yvonne Joseph. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so mine is at _mybeautiful_Africa. That's on Instagram, and that's also on Facebook. But on LinkedIn, I'm Clara Okoro.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We'll call it a day. Do have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Bookii.
It's really been awesome being part of the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.